Welcome to On the Prowl, presented by Cardiac Cats. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and today I'm once again joined by Griffin Fisher, a diehard fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. With the first week of preseason finally in the books, we'll be focusing on evaluating this Jacksonville roster and some of the key changes that change how it stacks up against the best. So with that said, how's your week been, Griffin?
It's been good. I'm ready for football to start back up. The real games.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to see the real games, but I do enjoy preseason a lot.
I don't know. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people trash on it because they're like, well, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It's boring. Let's get to the real season. And some of that's right, but I think the exciting part of it is that whether or not the rookies end up doing good, you actually get to go see them and you see where your roster is. And you also get to see, like, if you have injuries, how good are your backups and all that. And I know for us, it was a pretty exciting first week of the preseason for a lot of those reasons, especially watching guys like Nathan Rourke go out there, Gregory Jr., a lot of fun plays. So I'm sure you guys had some standouts too.
Oh yeah,
like every
pretty
wide receiver apparently is elite.
I wouldn't say elite, but I was.
You do off the air, you do.
Off the air, yeah. Tony and all those guys are elite, especially Justin Ross. But I mean, I was impressed with every wide receiver. They had very minimal drops. They had good yards after catch. And the second and third team defenses actually looked pretty good, too. Now, the first team defense was eh.
Yeah, they're missing a player. Someone.
I don't know who.
Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu?
Yeah,
I don't even think I said that right, but...
That's who's missing.
Yeah, he's on the air team in that game. He was in the game, I think. I don't know whether he started or not.
I think he played the first drive.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it was an exciting game to watch. I like the way their receivers performed. I wasn't huge on Rashee Rice. You already know that. I did see some air plays though. He did good on the air plays, but you don't want to see drops. But the two guys I was excited for were Cornell Powell and Justin Ross, because they all play with Trevor Lawrence. They're all cool guys. Actually, you know it, but a lot of people watching this don't know. I work out at the Missouri Western campus in St. Joseph, so we've actually had the Chiefs players here for training camp. So I've seen a lot of them out here and went through their rooms to clean. It's just part of my job right now, so I see every single day Powell and Ross they're in the same suite. They got all their Clemson stuff up. It's pretty cool because they were teammates there. And they seem like pretty good guys. So I was happy to see both of them have a pretty productive drive. And one where they actually took over completely. I think they had every reception.
Whole drive was them.
Yeah, they look good. So definitely good to hear. Well, with that said, we're going to start this off. It's pretty obvious what we're talking about. We're going to recap week 1 of the preseason. And we're going to talk about some other teams here as well, because there was some interesting stuff going on, specifically regarding quarterbacks, because the guys we were all excited for, or we're supposed to be excited for, of course in the AFC South we aren't excited for the rookies because they're all in our division, but CJ Stroud played on Thursday night, Bryce Young I think was Saturday, and then you had Will Levis come out a little bit then as well. And the other one was Anthony Richardson on Saturday morning as well. And every single one of them did not play well. Other than maybe Bryce Young. Bryce Young was... You could tell there's issues in Carolina. It's what happens when you have to dismantle your roster to get the first overall pick. But I don't think they'll regret it.
Young didn't look as bad as the other ones, though.
Yeah, because the other ones, like, pretty much threw straight to defenders for a pick on their first drive, which is what we did too, but we're not going to talk about that yet.
No, I will say that you are 100% correct on the Titans O-line. They looked awful.
They don't have backups.
Will Levis had about the least amount of chance, I think, of any of the rookies. He was just getting sacked back to back.
Yeah.
It was rough.
I don't think he was out there with their first teamers, I'm pretty sure. And even the first teamers, like, you have a lot of questions there. Like, you've got some really good players and some guys who are solid, maybe. I mean, that would be Andre Dillard is who I'm talking about in that regard, because the guy was a first-round pick. He was a backup pretty much all of his career. So I don't know if I can call that solid, but like Skoronski's great. But the rest of it's like burn it with fire. And then every player behind that's bad. So
They got no depth, obviously.
man, they made the Bears look like they had the pass rush from like the 80s. And they were the team who tore apart their entire pass rush and just thought, okay, well, every pick in the third round will go to the defensive line. They brought in like Gervon Dexter, Zach Pickens, all these random guys. But hey, maybe it'll work. Maybe the Titans actually do have an offensive line and the Bears are just having an elite pass rush now. We don't know. But yeah, the four quarterbacks really did not show a whole ton. I think the most impressed I was by any of them, like I think like you're saying, is Bryce Young, because he at least showed enough control to not fire an interception because his team was going to go to fourth down. So that was exciting to see. But there were two other quarterbacks in this rookie class who did pretty dang well, and one of them who did well the week before as well in the Hall of Fame game. And those were Aiden O'Connell from Las Vegas and Dorian Thompson-Robinson from Cleveland. Now, I don't think you saw any of their games, right?
I saw some highlights, but no, I didn't watch anything specific.
Okay, and I did not watch the Browns games, either of them. I didn't watch Hall of Fame. I didn't watch their game.
No, wait, I did watch the Browns
game,
actually. That first one.
I did see Las Vegas, though, as I was driving home, so don't judge me for that. But I was listening to it in the car, and the Vegas commentators, they were like really, really biased. Like it was almost worse than the Cowboys broadcast, which is crazy. Like they legit think they have like a Super Bowl contender now after week 1 of the preseason. I mean that. That's how they talked on their broadcast. But O'Connell, he looked really good in that game. He had like, I think 15 of 18, high 100s for yardage. He had a touchdown, and he was very, very efficient, very poised. Like you didn't really see him panic at any point in the game. He's playing against a good defense, whether or not it's the starters. San Francisco is just a deep roster.
Yeah, they've got a lot of depth, so you're still playing against good players.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you have like a billion third-round picks every year, because all your coaches are getting hired by other teams and constantly purged, which that's just the San Francisco way right now, which, hey, works for them because they keep getting good coaches in. But, yeah, he was impressive. And then Thompson-Robinson, he played pretty well too, really good actually. But I think the key difference between the two of them was the fact that DTR can actually run the ball, whereas O'Connell, he's more of a pocket passer.
Which makes it hard to get a starting job in the NFL now.
Yeah, look at Tanner McKee. it's funny.
I mean, it's crazy that Burrow is so good while playing an almost old style of quarterback at this point.
Yeah, he's one of the only ones. I'd almost throw Lawrence in there too, but he still runs it a little bit, but he doesn't run nearly as much as what people thought he would coming into the pros. It's very rare you actually see him do like an RPO or
He's still got the ability, though, which is what's important.
Yeah, I wish they'd use it, but it is what it is. But on the opposite side of that game with Aiden O'Connell was Trey Lance, who I'm going to go ahead and say at this point, I think he's done.
I think he will get a chance to start for another team, similar to a way like Mariota did. But I don't think he's starting NFL caliber. I don't think he's been given a fair shot either. But you have to go with Purdy. He's not going to get another shot in San Francisco.
Yeah, and to quote what they said, they basically said that Brock Purdy had to, in their words, melt during training camp to lose the starting role. So it's over there. We know Purdy's the starter. But man, Lance, he did not look good at all. His only touchdown, he maybe had two, but the one I saw and the one everyone's seen, he literally is sitting in the pocket. He's just death staring the middle of the field, launches it at full speed. There isn't even a receiver within 15 yards of this ball. Throws it straight at a cornerback. The guy was so shocked that the ball came his way because he was like, how am I going to be a part of this play? I'm like, not even close to your receiver, that he couldn't even catch it. And it just basically flew out of his hands straight to a 49ers receiver, and they got the touchdown. That's probably the highlight of Lance's career. But when you look at his statistics, his history, he's a quarterback that has not taken a lot of snaps anywhere. Talking about NFL, talking about college, talking about high school. He's barely played the position.
Which is the same as he's also been given very few opportunities to even play the position.
Yeah, because how does San Francisco give him an opportunity when he's learning if they're a Super Bowl caliber team that's making the NFC Championship every year? Like, are you going to have him try out in the championship game for you when you could go
All
win
I
the Super
know
Bowl?
is if he's bad, then that makes me think less of the people at the top of San Francisco, because they gave away a fortune to get him. And if he can't even start ever on that team, they're making some bad decisions at the top.
Yeah, and it's the fact, too, that fortune they gave up for him, every single one of those picks turned into a very, very good player, whether or not drafted, because it was Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and the third one got traded for Bradley Chubb last year.
Yeah, that team, they single-handedly made the Dolphins like a very strong team to play against.
That's everything they have right now, because Ramsey's injured. They don't even have that. So, I mean, yeah, they literally built the Miami Dolphins with that trade.
And somehow the 49ers are fine still, too.
Yeah, because they get so many compensatory picks every year. Like, you could screw up as much as you want, and they got their quarterback at the last pick of the draft. It's crazy, but they're a good team still, regardless. But, man, at some point, like, you would have thought you have to give Lance a year to start. And you could argue he hasn't earned it, but still, like, he's the third pick.
And at this point, they needed to give him a chance to start earlier, because now at this point he's done there. And if the reports that Darnold was looking better than him, that's not good for Lance.
Yeah, Darnold's the number 2 guy right now. I don't even know if it's close at this point. But it's a mess because, man, you would have thought like any quarterback could go over there and succeed, and he's the only one who can't, and he was the third pick in the draft. So, and it's not for a lack of talent. He has talent. He just can't put it together on the field. So, but, I mean, you could blame a lot of different people. Can't fully blame him, in my opinion, at least.
No. But if he's not good, he's not good. That's what sucks about the NFL.
Yep, that's true. Well, I'm sick of talking about other teams here, so we're going to talk a little bit about Jacksonville and Kansas City here, because it's going to be a big part of the show today is kind of stacking these teams up against each other, talking about where they are, because, I mean, if you're a Jacksonville fan, like, it's pretty easy to acknowledge that Kansas City is a team you got to beat. So we're going to start off by talking about the game on Saturday, and then we'll move to Sunday with the Chiefs. But I've got a couple questions regarding some topics. The big first one was the start of the game, because pretty much I think it was the second play on offense, Trevor Lawrence had the ball turned over. And at first it looks really bad on Lawrence because you're thinking, like, he just made a terrible throw. And he did. It wasn't a smart throw. But when you go watch the replay, I think there's a little bit more to it. When you watch the route Ridley was running, you watch him drift upfield, and all that. There's a lot going on in that play because you've got the receiving element of it, the quarterback element, but then you got the offensive line that looks like just amazing on the play, which is apparently ranked 31st in the NFL, just so you know.
Oh, wow. That seems a little low. I would not have put them there.
Well, Lawrence has a lower Madden rating than Tua, so that makes you understand a little more.
But his injury rating's probably better.
By like 2 points, I'm sure.
But, yeah, I can't blame Trevor on that because I don't think he'd make that throw during a real game. I think they were trying to force the ball to a new player, and obviously something went wrong executing that.
Well, it was to Ingram. That is what they said. It was a pass for Evan Ingram. better than Calvin Ridley. And if you watch the play, Ingram could have been open there and probably would have caught it if it wasn't for Ridley moving upfield. But you see Ridley drifts his route, and when he does that, I mean, he's so fast that he's pretty much side by side with Evan Ingram. So he puts his corner in coverage essentially on the other wide receiver, or tight end, I guess, would be what Ingram is. And so he basically, unfortunately, Ridley's mistake on the route set up the guy for a pick, and Lawrence underthrew it a bit too. So it's kind of all over the place, but it's just sort of a weird play in it. And we talked about it with Ridley, like, is he going to be good right off the bat? Is he going to take time? I know you're of the opinion he's going to need to knock off Russ for a bit. And we just said this before the podcast, but like I'm basically thinking it's going to be a very mixed results start to the year. Like I think there's going to be plays where he goes and actually like burns a defense for a touchdown, looks awesome, and then you're going to see a play where he's going to go get pancaked into the ground by a defensive back because he's just not aware of what's going on, or he's going to run a route wrong and collide with the receiver or whatever it may be. Like there's going to be a bit of communication issues early in the year.
Yeah, I think it'll take him about a quarter of a year to really get in the swing. But yeah. I mean, I mostly agree with you. I think he'll have some big plays at the start of the season. I just don't think his numbers will be as good to start with.
Yeah, he's not going to be super consistent to start. I don't think that. I think maybe you see it in a big game. I think like week 2, maybe he does that. But they have an offense that's built to where you don't have to rely on one player. As much as we like Ridley, they could win the game without Calvin Ridley. Like they can do that. It's just their chances go up when Ridley's having a good game. And yeah, Christian Kirk.
Look how far they got last season, and they didn't have Ridley. So
well, I mean, kind of a bold take here. It's very possible that Christian Kirk outpaces Calvin Ridley in yards this year. I don't think that's crazy to think, because you think of where Christian Kirk was last year with 1,100, 8 yards or whatever it was. It was 1,100 at least, I know. And that's his first year in the offense. In his second year with Lawrence playing better and Ridley probably having to get some rust knocked off early, I think it's possible that Kirk could get more yardage and you could see him just edge out Calvin Ridley. And you saw him get targeted in the game. He was the guy who got the touchdown.
And I think they'll rely on crucial downs, third downs, fourth downs, on Kirk more, especially start the season.
Yeah, him and Ingram.
Because they know that, him and Ingram, because they know that both of them have, better knowledge of the playbook. The better connection with Lawrence so far. But then I do think by the end of the season, Ridley should be the number one guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to shift throughout the year, but I think you could see Kirk outpace him throughout much of the season. That's very much in the cards because he's that kind of receiver. So, but yeah, it was painful to watch because like I was driving up to Iowa to go see my brother watch the game, and we had my niece's birthday, and I'm like probably 20 minutes away from the house. I'm trying to turn on the broadcast on my phone, get it working. Lawrence throws a pick immediately, and then, like, no joke, right after that happens, my phone just crashes, destroys the app, and I can't get it reloaded, so I couldn't watch, like, anything for a good 10 minutes. So I was just sitting there in the car, like, oh, that's good. I'm glad my last play I watched was Lawrence, like, throwing a bomb into the defense. That's what I want to see, after waiting, like, what would it be, 7 months for football?
It's a rough start.
It went better after, but yeah.
Chiefs start wasn't great either, but it wasn't a pick, so.
Yeah, it's a different question there for sure. Now, I've got a couple more things I want to talk about, and one of these will relate to one of your players, who was ours, but he decided he wanted to stay back after the divisional round. But Jawaan Taylor, obviously, is that player. Anton Harrison was really interesting to watch on Saturday because when you watch the way he performs, the struggles he has as well, he's like, as we thought so far, a carbon copy of Jawaan Taylor. Because you look at his pass pro reps, he was perfect throughout the game. Every single play, pretty much perfect. They ran stunts on him. They tried to double team him with guys, or try to like basically set it up to where they could get someone around. And he was able to pass off guys easily. He was blocking well. He placed his hands well. Like, he was very efficient in that regard. He actually led, I think you saw the play, he led straight to the touchdown that Lawrence had in the first quarter. He was the reason why they got that, because they tried running a stunt on him and he blocked it. But then you saw a running play where he just runs past the guy that he's supposed to block, and it's a tackle for loss because he doesn't understand the run play, which is the same stuff Jawan Taylor would do.
It is hard. It doesn't seem like it for people who aren't super invested in football, but the running plays are some of the most complicated things for a lineman to get down. So it's I was impressed with how good he looked being a rookie. I thought he looked really good.
He was among the most confident.
First year. But yeah, run plays take a while, so he'll learn that through the season.
I just want to see him be anything like what Lane Johnson was. And I say Lane Johnson because there's a guy that I think Pearson brought in to the team. Maybe he came in right before, but out of Oklahoma, right tackle, super successful in the NFL. He's one of the best right tackles in the league, if not the best, depending on who you ask and whether they're from Philadelphia. But he was he was really good during the game. And it's like, if that's how he's going to play, and he's obviously going to go up against harder competition, but it's still Dante Fowler, and then I think it was Sam Williams. I might have that name wrong, but it was a couple starters for Dallas. There were players who would be on the field against them. But this next week he's playing Hutchinson. Actually, today he's going to be going up against them in their practices that they're doing, joint practices. So if he performs really well in those, I'm going to be super excited for him, because that's a big test right off the bat.
Your O-line just... I'm still caught up on the ranked 31st.
They hate him. And they wore shirts for that because they're so offended by it.
Close. Oh, that's good. I mean, you saw the Chiefs O-line take offense whenever the Eagles were talking about like blowing through them in the Super Bowl. That's really good for an O-line. That fires them up.
Yeah, I mean, they literally, I don't know if you remember, but last year, I think up until after week 10, they led the NFL in the least amount of sacks allowed throughout the year. But they're 31st in the league, apparently. I don't get how, but and it's like they're doing this without Cam Robinson out on the field, which he came out for some reason in the fourth with the backups, but I mean, that's without their highest paid left tackle and the guy they think is the best. So I'm excited, especially for like when he comes back from his suspension, you're going to be looking at an offensive line that has Cam Robinson returning, who's much better in the run game, Anton Harrison on the right, and then Walker Little, who performed really well last year, late in the season, taking over for Cam. In the playoffs, he was really good, other than I think like one play where they tried calling him for tripping. He's going to probably end up being the left guard. That's what they've been talking about. They're going to get the best five out there, and you've got your young draft pick at center who was pretty good last year, and Brandon Scherf, who's one of the best at right guard. So I think they're going to be really good on the offensive line this year.
Well, apparently the rest of the world disagrees.
No, they do. Yeah, everyone doesn't live in Jacksonville, and then you.
I'm with you on that. I don't see any way they could be. I mean, this is a tough statement, but I don't see any way they could possibly be in the bottom half of lines. I just don't see that.
They'd have to have injuries, and they still have a lot of depth behind, because if, say, Little goes down or any of the tackles, then you just put in your actual left guard. At center, you got Tyler Shatley behind, which he played in the playoffs last year. He was all right. And then they even have a fourth tackle in Josh Wells, who came from the former Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are now never going to win a Super Bowl again, it seems like. but I'm biased against
Well, it'll
them.
be a while.
It'll be like a good 40 years.
They gotta wait till
maybe,
Mahomes is about to
yeah,
retire.
that's what I was about to say. Yeah, they got to get Mahomes. That's their only shot. Oh man, but yeah, I was excited about that. And then there's the last topic really around Jacksonville this week was the report on Sunday about Jadeveon Clowney coming in, and they've brought in guys quite a few times at edge. They've also talked about trading for a guy, more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. Each time that's come up, like Danielle Hunter, it just hasn't happened. And we're really at a point where we have to genuinely ask ourselves, is this going to happen, or is this just a load of malarkey, or whatever you want to call it? And I'm starting to not buy it. I don't think they're going to get anyone this offseason or during the year at edge rusher.
I'm thinking they're looking for good bang for their buck, but they're not willing to. They're not willing to put out a lot of buck. So they're looking around, and I do think that means that they think that might be an issue on the team. But I mean, judging by how much money they're willing to spend, it's not an issue they're super worried about.
Yeah, they need a mentor. I don't think they desperately need like a starter, because they have starters on the team, and if they wanted to go make a big move, that's fine. You could get by with that. Like, I think if they wanted to go get Danielle Hunter and he had actually ended up coming here, that would have been a great move for them. Would have been really good. But they more so need a mentor, because there are a lot of pass rushers on the team now, and there's a lot of capability between them all, but they need someone who can actually like coach them up. And the defensive line coach is good, but it's good when you get a guy in, well, he's not available now, but like Justin Houston. It would have been a great signing for Jacksonville, but they didn't go get him, and I just don't think anything's going to happen, at least anything big. Maybe they go get like just some random guy, I don't know who, but I don't expect anything.
It is important to have experience on the defensive line. There was stuff that happened with my team that they probably could have used some experience out there.
Yeah, and with that said, we'll actually talk about them a little bit, because the big question, I think, with Kansas City after watching the preseason game is around their defense. On that first drive especially, and I think they gave up a touchdown on the second drive too. I don't know if that was starters though, so we'll just talk about first.
There was still a good amount of starters on there.
Okay, that's bad, because there was a backup quarterback on the field for New Orleans. I think his name, I think it was Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
I think. But at the same time, during preseason, the play calling is so vanilla. And I don't think Andy Reid's legitimately sitting out there like, okay, I'm going to like make sure I'm calling my best plays every time. Like, they more so want to test out players. But there's also the question of, this is what the defense looks like without Chris Jones. So where do you stand on all that?
Now, to the point with Andy Reid, I am a little bit more worried. I mean, I trust in the coaching. I think Spagnuolo's good, and I think Andy Reid can get players fired up and get the young players involved. But there was a lot of blitzes. It seemed like Spagnuolo was really throwing out a lot of schemes, which maybe he was throwing out some stuff that he doesn't usually play with. But I noticed a lot of blitzing from the Chiefs, and I mean, maybe Carr's just good at reading that. But I was definitely worried.
He did.
Those look like starting plays to me. Those look like plays I would see during the regular season, which is why it kind of got to me a little bit. But I think at least with the defensive side of that, the defensive line part, they desperately need Jones. I mean, he's a guy who almost commands teams to put 2 blockers on every play. He's that good. So you have all these other young players on the line with very few veterans. And the ones that are there are kind of mid. But yeah, they need the experience. Just the mentorship alone is crucial for that line.
And they're not going to have a Menahu at the start of the year either, right? So he's going to be out. And then
their most experienced guy is Naughty, Derek Naughty, which is not a household name. So
yeah, I kind of know it, but there's him and Karlaftis. And then I guess Felix on DK Uzama
yep.
they got. So they're okay at edge. It's young. They're going to have to develop those guys, but they're okay. And then on the interior, that's the problem right now without Chris Jones.
I mean, Derek Carr didn't really have to worry about pass rush as much. He could just sit there and read the secondary because whenever Jones isn't there, you don't have to plan for Jones. Chris Jones is important enough where teams are dedicating like the whole week of practice to making sure that he's double teamed and he's not getting through the line every play. So whenever you don't have to prepare for that, that's a big blow to the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, and Chris Jones is well above what anyone else on that defensive line is right now. And that's not an insult. That's just based off of it's more so just the age of these players. Because like Karlaftis could end up being really good. Felix Anudike-Uzama could end up being really good. And I like how Karlaftis performed the first year as well, but they're second and first year guys. So they're not going to be dominant that first season, this season. So, yeah, I think like they need Chris Jones back.
They need
and you've got to
pay him.
Yeah, that's got to be taken care of. Now, it doesn't look good from what I've seen. And you always know that can be you know that can be wrong. Like that's always possible.
And Jones
spews a lot of crap.
Is famous for trolling on Twitter. Well, X.
Yeah.
But he liked a post about from a Raiders fan saying it looked good in black and silver, and then immediately after that, he liked a post saying that he's still going to play this season from another Chiefs fan. So it's
he's trolling
a lot.
His goal right now is to get the biggest contract he can get. He doesn't care where it is at this point because he's won Super Bowls with Kansas City. His time has been good there. There's nothing really left to prove for him.
I don't think negotiations are done though. I know there's been reports on that. Like there's no way it's going to happen. But Jones liked to tweet and retweet it saying that if he didn't want to still negotiate, he would have already announced something. They would have just said he's not going to sign. There would be news about that.
Well, the Chiefs won't say he's not going to sign. I don't think that, but there would probably be news about him like being shopped finally. But he's got to come back. I'm of that opinion.
He's not. Now, I would like some trades very soon.
Well, yeah, that too. Because here's the thing: if you don't do anything with him this year, and he holds out, he's a free agent.
We get nothing. We get nothing for the best defensive lineman.
Top third round. Back end third round compensation.
Yeah,
97. I think it would be.
Not great.
Yeah, so you get what we got for Jawan Taylor.
Oh yeah, that's a equal value too.
Yeah, Jawan Taylor for Chris Jones. That's fair. Whenever we sign Chris Jones in free agency, of course, I'm sure we
still think Jones is going to sign. But I will say I started off like 99% sure. I'm getting into like the lower 80s now.
Yeah,
it's starting to not feel great.
Odds tell me like he shouldn't sign there, but I just don't. I can't imagine him not being a Kansas City Chief. I can't imagine something that seems like that good for the rest of the league happening. It just doesn't happen.
I think if he's going to sign, you're going to see it right after the second or third preseason game. Because I think the Chiefs probably got a wake-up call in that defensive drive. Like, oh, crap, we really need this guy.
It's happening by the end of the month, most likely. I will say this. If he does not re-sign and they have to trade him, the only way I could possibly justify that is if you go trade him to a team like the Arizona Cardinals or the Houston. Well, it won't be Houston now because they don't have a top pick. They traded theirs to Arizona, actually. But go trade with a team like that or an Indianapolis Colts, as much as I hate that.
He was not going to be a threat.
Yeah. You need to trade with a team that's going to be really bad. And here's the reason why. Because if you get a top pick and you have your own top pick, if you want to trade around, say they're like picking 5th or 6th, you go get in position to go get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. And you go reposition the roster to where, okay, now you're not spending $30 million on this guy a year, which is what he wants, apparently. Instead, you pay him rookie money, and Harrison Jr. is going to be really freaking good. and I would be horrified if I saw him on Kansas City, even if you're without Chris Jones. So, like, that's the only way I could justify that. And I would actually say that's the best option.
To a bad team because of the fact that Chris Jones is so good that if we send him to a contender, that contender becomes like a favorite at that point.
They're picking 32nd, and you're like limiting your Super Bowls.
There's all sorts of reasons why, if they do trade him, it's going to a garbage team.
Yeah, we aren't getting Chris Jones, guys. I'm sorry.
How about we just pretend that's not happening, though, and he's just getting re-signed any day now?
Well, he probably will be. It probably will be, but we'll see. Now, the other thing we'll talk about with Kansas City, because the other big topic, nonstop, is wide receivers. And so, unfortunately, yesterday there was an injury with Justin Ross. We don't know the severity. Something to do with leg, hamstring, in that regard.
He walked off on his own power to go get it checked out. He knows something's wrong. And then they carted him back to the facility. And Andy Reid said hamstring, knee, ankle, something. So there's no clue. I'm going to find out here in about 2 or 3 hours.
I bet it's like maybe he misses week 1. I don't think it's going to be anything big. And the important thing for him is that it's not spinal related. Because that's where it's like, okay, why did they sign this guy?
And I don't even think he's going to miss week 1. I think they might just sit him out of this preseason game.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back for preseason.
We have no clue what's wrong with him, though.
Yeah, it's all
for all we know, it's going to be surgery and he's done. So,
yeah. Now, with that said, we were going to talk about receivers, but we're just going to make it clear. Like, we both think he's going to make the roster and going to be like a starter for them at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if he's on IR, which is very possible, then he's not going to be one of the starting 3. So we'll keep that in mind. If he's healthy, he's one of the starting 3. But my question is, with how much hype there has been around basically every single Kansas City Chiefs receiver this offseason, and funny enough,
some of it more justified than others.
Yeah, the only guy it hasn't been is the number 1 guy in MVS, but it is what it is. I feel bad for him, but
people legit forget he's on the team.
Yeah,
I can admit I've done it once or twice while trying to make a lineup of the receivers.
Yeah, it's kind of wacky, but it's all right. But outside of him, because he's obviously got to be a starter, who are the other 2 guys that are going to join the starting 3? Like, who are you thinking right now? Because we have Ross, obviously, but we're not going to count
are we talking by like right away, or so week 1?
Yeah, week
starters?
1. Who are your starters?
So that's counting injuries.
Yeah, so we'll take out just Justin Ross, right? Is there any others? I know Remigio.
And I would, if we're doing week 1, I would take out Tony. I think Tony's an obvious person later in the season, but I don't think he's going to be getting top 3 receiver looks this first couple weeks while he's healing. So I would go Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's going to be the number 1 guy. And then Sky Moore is number 2. I think he's been taking first-team reps the whole time. He's more knowledgeable in the playbook now, and I think the Chiefs are really wanting to see what he's worth. And then number 3, I'm gonna have to say Richie James.
I'm 100% on board with that. I think it's close with Rashee Rice.
Did you see the Richie James drive?
Yeah, I watched it. I watched the whole game.
Really good. I don't know what's up with these Giants receivers coming to Kansas City, but they instantly look about 5 times as good.
It's because they were on the New York Giants. But
yeah,
that's your answer.
They had Daniel Jones
at the same time, like, it's so confusing because, like, we have to see them in the regular season, because I could say the same damn thing about Jeff Cotton from last year. Do you know who Jeff Cotton is?
Nope.
Okay. Jeff Cotton had some really badass catches in preseason the last couple years. Looked great. Tim Jones as well. He made the roster. Jeff Cotton did not. But they both had these like great catches. It didn't put him on the roster. I think it will for Richie James because of the situation in Kansas City. They have injuries.
And his training camp has been.
Yeah, he's been good.
With the top team, he's been very, very good.
Yeah, so I think he's making it. But it is a question of, like, okay, what's going to happen when he goes up against, like, Patrick Surtain? Which I guess maybe another receiver does.
Does he have the talent?
Yeah, is he going to, like, overcome those guys?
Yeah.
Because right now, like, all those guys, for the most part, played against backups. There were a couple who went against starters. And that's why I
Richie
really
James
want to
was second
see.
team, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I really want to see them this week. Put them out with the starters. Put them out at the beginning of the game with Mahomes. Have Mahomes play, and see what they do. And who do you guys play?
I think
by the
Richie
way?
James will get some looks.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Fake
I don't
fan.
know.
Fake fan.
Listen, I watch all the preseason games, but I will admit that I don't do as much research going into them.
Cardinals. You're on the road. We play the Lions. On the
I know
road.
we play the Browns week 3 because I'm going to that one. But
okay,
Cardinals. That's not going to be a good testing team for any of our players. Now that I think about it,
they have Buda Baker.
You might as well put the young guys out right away. Actually,
you have to. Otherwise,
now,
it's
I
just
don't think
bull crap.
Ross is going out there in any meaningful way at all. Because even if it's a light injury that happened yesterday, they don't want to have a chance at that re-aggravating this soon. So I don't think you'll see Ross. But I think they will give Rashee Rice and Richie James a look. Maybe even Powell. Because another guy who went down yesterday, and this was dislocated shoulder. Same thing that just took our tight end out for the season. Yeah, Remigio. He actually was looking really good. I don't think he was going to get starting role as a wide receiver at all. But with him down, Powell has a chance to really move up in stocks. And he's not bad. He's been on our practice squad for a good... He was there last year. We kept him.
I hope he makes it. I really do. I wish he could have had a role with Jacksonville, because he was a guy I wanted them in the draft, but obviously there's not a spot at this point, because we'd be getting rid of our 6th round pick from this year. But Powell played really good in the preseason game.
The crazy thing is that Andy Reid almost never takes 7 wide receivers. I think they're going to have to this year. And the crazy thing is I don't think there's a spot for Powell. He's going to have to get special teams, because the lineup is very clear. It's Tony, MVS, Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, Richie James, Justin Watson, and those all 6 are pretty much confirmed. So there's only one spot that's really up in the air, and I think it's got to go Justin Ross. So he's going to have to make it in special teams if Powell wants a spot.
Yeah, Powell could be on the roster early just because of the injuries, but yeah, he's got a hard battle to get there.
Funny thing is, Watson, we signed a 2-year deal, and he had the least amount of snaps in week 1. So I think they say that means that they're very sure on him being on the roster. So
we signed JaMychal Hasty to a 2-year deal and then got two running backs that should start above him. So
that's a fair point.
It happens.
But they're both going to be on their respective rosters, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. Now we'll talk a little more here. We'll just talk for a little bit about it because we really wanted to focus mainly on that week 1 and kind of the big questions right now in general, because a lot of those are really important. But I do want to talk about some of the changes this offseason as far as the identities of these teams. And you'll have to carry a little more on Kansas City if they change anything, because obviously when you win a Super Bowl, you're not exactly thinking about, okay, what do we need to do better?
You're reloading, not...
You're reloading. You gotta be taken down. You're obviously going to keep track of what other people are doing, but they had a really good plan last year. But the Jaguars have done quite a bit specifically on offense, because when you're talking about defense, it's more so Caldwell's had to adjust more to what the players are good at, and you've seen him do that, especially late last season. They're doing it more this offseason because they've had guys like Devin Lloyd actually rush the passer, which he was really good at in college. That was one of his strengths. So they're going to play into that. They're going to change around the roles, and the big thing is, can all the guys who have all this potential on defense play better? Because if they did, if you're talking about Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker being number 1 pass rushers, they could have a defense that's top 10 in the league, maybe even top 5. But is everything going to go right? I don't expect that. But the offense is where they've done a lot more. And the most interesting part is what they're doing with the tight end room. Because you saw last year, they had competent tight ends. They did have guys they could use. Dan Arnold was solid. Luke Farrell, solid tight end. He's still here. Then Chris Manhertz. But a lot of those guys, they don't really fit the Doug Peterson offense. because he looks for receiving tight ends who are capable blockers as well. He wants balanced guys. So you've got like Garrett Prince now, who's probably going to make the roster. Who's been a really good receiving tight end, especially in the red zone. And then you have Brendan Strange, the second round pick. And these guys are going to function a lot better in his system. And they've been talking about something a lot this offseason that you'll be a little more familiar with because you've watched a lot in Chiefs games. But they're talking about running more 13 personnel plays. So 3 tight ends, 1 running back, 1 receiver. And last year, when Kansas City went on their way to the Super Bowl, that was one of their
huge part of it.
Yeah, it was arguably their biggest
Every
strength.
game, that lineup would be out there for 30% of times even.
Yeah, because you guys, you had Kelsey, and obviously he's miles above the rest, but you had tight ends you could put on the field behind him, and you saw him frequently. Like when we went to games at Arrowhead, we'd see a guy at tight end go make a big catch that was just like, who the heck
like
is this
guy? Had like a game-winning catch.
Yeah, Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, which he just got taken out for the year, but they can always find someone else.
They've got Bushman. That's been their breakout guy this year. So there'll be a tight end to replace him. The Chiefs will be fine in tight end room still.
And you got to get your 4th guy behind that. But
Blake Bell.
Oh, Blake Bell. Okay, I thought we were missing a name.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's
the one that failed on the QB sneak, which is a tight end sneak for the Chiefs.
Dang, that's unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, you guys have enough people now. Fortson obviously is a loss, but like you were able to run 13 personnel a lot. And what's really powerful about it is when you can get all your tight ends in the middle of the field, you get one of them open, and you have the rest of them be able to block. Because those are good blockers in the middle of the field compared to like if, you got like freaking Calvin Ridley doing a block downfield. Like we love him as a receiver, but not exactly an elite blocker. But you can expect that with the tight end, they're going to match up really well when they're trying to take on like safeties and such. And Jacksonville's tight ends are pretty good at that right now, especially like Brendan Strange.
That lineup works really well if you have a breakout tight end too, is really good. As like Ingram, that lineup really benefits that because the Chiefs use that all the time when they know it's going to be a Kelsey pass.
And 2, yeah, with that said, and you see it with the Chiefs when they run it, you have to have one of your tight ends who can line up out wide, not necessarily all the way to the sideline, but on the outside of the formation. So you saw Kelsey do that quite a bit where he almost just looks like a receiver. Evan Ingram, last year, we talked about it on one of our videos because we were talking about the contract and how he looks at himself. He lined up more often outside of a traditional tight end position than he did in a traditional tight end position along like the inside of the line or by the tackle. It's like he was in the slot a ton and he was just all over the field, out wide, all those spots. So I think you could see him line up in that kind of spot. You have Brendan Strange and Garrett Prince who can line up on the inside of the receiver and Ingram, and you've got a really good group that can get out there and be productive. So I think that's going to be a huge change. And it's not shocking because, well, Andy Reid, that's one of the guys Doug Peterson follows the most. Like he's an Andy Reid disciple. So when you see Andy Reid have so much success with that and be so unstoppable, why would you not do that?
It's pretty fun actually watching the Jaguars because of that. I see a lot of plays and like, oh yeah, that's an Andy Reid play.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same person. Andy Reid's the best coach of all time.
You saw with the news that Peterson was even helping the Chiefs with practice. Or not practice, but advice before the Super Bowl even. So they got very similar ideas, and they can look at defenses and roster changes very similarly.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be exciting because we can hopefully expect some success there with a change in the way we're running the offense.
It's proven to work because of Reid.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing as well, talking about offense, and this also pertains to tight ends a little bit too, specifically Brendan Strange. They're going to have a much better running back room this year and just a general rushing attack because they brought in people, specifically Tank Bigsby, who can actually grind out the yards on short yardage situations. You saw it be a struggle for ETN. That was one of the only things he was bad at last year. So they're going to
He's not
get
built for that.
Yeah, that's not his role. And so they're going to have more of a balanced backfield. It might hurt you in fantasy if you want to go get Travis Etienne. Maybe not. They said they want him to get 1,600, 1,700 yards a season. I don't think that's going to happen.
That is insane.
They have high expectations. They want him to get like 100 yards.
That's good. That's good to have that.
If you're winning games, then sure, because you're going to be running the ball. That's their motto. It's that you pass the score and you run to win. So perhaps, like, if they're elite this year, they could get 1,700 yards with them. But they do have a more crowded backfield. But the fun part of it, too, one of the positions that's gone away in the NFL is fullback. People just, the teams don't have them for the most part, other than like Kyle Ramczyk and
even
random
Reid
other
gave
guys.
up on it this year.
Yeah.
He was one of the few quarterbacks who had it left, and he just got rid of it. So,
but then you look at what Jacksonville did in the draft. So you do have an actual fullback they drafted that they're listing as a tight end, I think, right now, Derek Parrish. But the one I'm excited for is Brendan Strange. You go watch his his tape at Penn State. There were a lot of plays where they would put him in the backfield, right in front of the running back, behind the quarterback. He would either get the ball and rush down the middle, or he would block. And he was a really, really good blocker. When you watch his, and I'm biased, I'm going to say that before this. When you watch his film and how he plays as a tight end, his catching ability, his blocking ability, you wonder why the heck he wasn't even like talked about with the top tight ends, or at least mentioned. Do you think he deserved at least that? But the NFL was high on him. Like, he was going in the second round most likely if the Jaguars didn't take him. He was going a few picks later. So I'm excited for it. I think the rushing attack's going to benefit a ton. And that's important.
It sounds like you guys could use him exactly like how we use Blake Bell.
Yeah, you put him in the backfield.
Which is an Andy Reid play style, so it just fits right in.
Yeah, because if you can't have a dedicated spot for a fullback, get a guy who can play tight end but also move into the backfield. Get versatile players. It's good for your team, because then you have more room to do stuff that you want. Maybe you can go get a role player that's just really good for one thing, where, like, say you decide I want to get a guy who's basically just a kick returner. Like Jamal Agnew, I think he's the best returner in the league, or at least like top 3. But he doesn't do a ton in the receiving game. He had like 191 yards, which is pretty much nothing.
Unlike Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, but you did.
Actually, that's very similar.
He got more yards than Kadarius Toney last year, just so you know.
Best Super Bowl punt returner ever. Just so you know.
He should be superstar X Factor in Madden.
Oh yeah, 99.
As a returner, he should be, but at least superstar, I would think. If there was just a position for that.
Agnew isn't really a huge impact on the receivers.
He's an offensive weapon, more so. Like, they'll bring him in, and they'll get him in space. They've talked about that this offseason, too, specifically recently, where they want to get him space and give him the ability to try to break through the defense, because that's what he excels at. Like, he's a guy, you get him the ball, he can get through and break the top off and make a touchdown.
You could make plays specifically for him. It could work out very well.
Yeah. That's the big thing they did this offseason. They didn't get starters. They just brought in guys that can play really good roles and develop as really good backups and maybe at some point be starters. But they just complemented everything they had for the most part. And so I think those are the big changes you're going to see on the team. But maybe some other stuff too. But they didn't do a ton. It was mainly just depth and bringing in complementary football players. So with that said, has Kansas City really done much of anything this offseason, or is it kind of same identity? Like,
I think there's definitely changes to the identity. I think you see it last year, also fitting in with 13 personnel. That was their big thing, was check downs and quick passes to tight ends. That was, obviously Jarrett McKinnon just throwing in the running back. They had very short yard plays, which was good for Mahomes. I think he learned a lot from that. But I think they want to get back into play style.
I think you
so
cut out
that's going to be an
second.
identity change. Oh shoot,
you're good. Yeah, I can hear you now, but
I think they're going to try to focus on their receivers more this year. And what sucks with the Chris Jones thing is I think they're trying to make the defensive line a really big part of that defense. They were going to make that almost a selling point. And if Jones isn't there, that takes away a ton from that. That defensive line goes from a threat to, at best, they could probably be average.
Yeah, well, at that point, what is really the strength on Kansas City's defense? It's really just the linebackers at that point. I give them linebackers.
The linebackers. Linebackers are good.
Yeah, but corner, they have a good slot, and then outside you've got Trey McDuffie.
Boost up the linebackers with Drew Tranquil. They actually got better.
Yeah, Bolden's good.
But it's going to be the linebackers will be the same. Defensive line has ramped up. And the secondary, they lost their safety, but then got a safety that should fill in pretty well there. They got Mike Edwards. So, I mean, the change is going to be receivers, and the defensive line was supposed to be a big part of it. But it looks like they are going to be mostly the same. Although, I think there'll be a couple of games where they'll be run heavy. Pacheco is really good.
Yeah, they can do that, and they should do it, because their whole identity doesn't have to run through one thing. And I know they have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, but if you have a capable backfield, you want to see him run the ball. And it's like, I'm not sitting in Jacksonville wanting them to go throw the ball every freaking down. I want Etienne to be an extremely productive running back, because that's how you end games. That's how you keep teams out of it. You just run down the clock. That's how you win.
I hope Andy Reid realizes that he's got a guy who can't dominate a game the same way as Kareem Hunt, but when at Pacheco's best, he can still dominate a game. We can focus on him and rely on him. And even if he runs twice in a row and doesn't get the first down, Jarrett McKinnon is one of the best third down backs, if not the best third down receiving back, that is, in the league. He was very good last year on third down, so they've got a backfield that's probably too good for an Andy Reid-led offense.
Yeah, you just got to run heavy inside, though. I don't know how much I trust the tackles in the run game. Maybe Donovan Smith is good, but I know Jawan Taylor was. Well,
yeah, you've got experience.
He was okay. I don't think he was the worst tackle in the league in run blocking last year.
I think he was pretty bad. I think he was close to worse.
Yeah, they said he had the most negatively graded run blocks in the league, and I think it was by a bit too.
It's good to have a guy like Pacheco who can
overcome
the physical power. Yeah, you try to blast through it.
Which you just run it up the middle. You have such a good interior with Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey.
You'll see,
is it Tooney?
And Tooney.
Yeah,
you'll see them just bulldoze their guys and go and block a second guy. They'll go block a linebacker right after. So,
and I'm pretty sure
they're very good.
Yeah, when we talk about the interior defensive lines too, that is a relatively weak position in the NFL, isn't it? There's not a ton of really good interior defense.
No, they're kind of getting phased out. The edges are becoming more important.
Yeah, that's where I would focus it. But Andy Reid knows better. I'm not going to tell him what to do.
But overall, I think the only difference is going to be I think they're going to try to be a little bit more wide receiver heavy, a little bit less tight end heavy. But Andy Reid will do whatever it requires to win. If it looks like Pacheco is going to be the key, he'll transition it to a more run heavy offense.
Yeah,
but with Mahomes, I don't think he'll let him run it too much.
Yeah, he'll scream on the sideline, yell some profanities, but he should. I mean, you're like the only 99 overall quarterback in Madden. That's what matters. The Madden
he's pretty
rating.
Good.
Yeah, he's all right.
You might want to get the ball in his hands every now and then.
Yeah, well, it should be in his hands every play. I hope they're not direct snapping to the running back or
that's what
maybe
they
the
did
tight
with
end.
The tight end.
Talking about. But
I'll never see another quarterback sneak for 15 years. It's never happening again in Kansas City.
Well, we're gonna see him. We've had some good ones. I remember the last one.
You've got a big, tall quarterback.
Well, the last one was what Joey Bosa throwing his helmet at the ground twice.
Oh man!
After his coach handed it back to him after the first time, and then
I'll be a Jaguars
jumping
fan.
over the line.
If you guys keep doing that to our rivals, I'll keep liking the Jaguars more and more.
Well, we got to play your rivals. And unfortunately, we won't play them for 3 years, and your rivals don't win the division, so they're not going to be on our schedule. It's very unlikely. So I don't want to play the Chargers for a little bit. I want them to stew on that for a couple of years. And then,
oh, they will. That's their fan base.
Yeah, they've already accepted not accepted. They think that they're just completely different now from last offseason, which is hilarious.
They got Khalil Mack. They're fixed.
Did they have him? He was just injured, I imagine, or something. I thought he played against Jacksonville in the wild card game, right? I think he did. But with that said, I appreciate you guys all joining us today. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the preseason performances, just to talk about them one last time. But until then, enjoy yourself some Jaguars football. It's exciting. We're going to have some fun players to watch, a lot of rookies to watch out for.
Cut out for
you're good.
30 seconds.
I'm here, so you're not, but it's all right. But I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and this has been On the Prowl, presented by Cardiac Cats.